Hello, fellow citizens. Welcome back. Today we're going to go over the performance tips in Linux running Star Citizen. Hopefully you've watched my previous video on how to install Star Citizen on Linux. It will perform better than Windows, but there's still performance to be had. So let's dive right into it. First, open up a terminal. And what we want to do is we want to make sure that our CPU is in high performance mode. This is going to make the clocks more stable at its max frequencies, allowing for better 1% and 0.1% lows. You may not necessarily see higher frame rates, but you will definitely see a much more enjoyable and smoother pacing of frame times. So what we can do is we can type in this little bit of code here. And what this is going to do, this is going to allow us to watch in half-second increments the frequency being reported for the CPUs and the cores. So here we can see that we have the 5800X3D, and it's running. As you can see, some cores are bouncing down to 2000 megahertz. Some are going up to 43, 44, 50. But we haven't enabled high performance yet. And the reason these are bouncing is because OBS is recording the screen as well. So we're going to open up a new terminal while we're watching the CPU frequencies. And we're going to type in another bit of code here. And it's going to be this, what you see on the screen. And I'm going to try to link down below into the description all of these bits for terminal. Hopefully YouTube doesn't block that and allows code on that. I'm not quite sure, but hopefully it does. So anyways, watch what happens to the frequency on the CPU when we set the CPU's performance scaling governor to performance. Now, look at the difference. Most of them are now at minimum the base clock of 3400 and all the way up to the 4450 megahertz for the 5800X3D. This is going to come in real important in Star Citizen to really smooth out those 1% and 0.1% lows. So this is the first tip. And because Star Citizen is so CPU intensive, this is probably going to be where you get the most benefit, is pushing your CPU to its limits and its max. Now, for those of you running AMD graphics cards, next tip is going to apply to you. It's not going to apply to NVIDIA. NVIDIA has a completely different way to unlock overclocking or pushing the power limits. But for NVIDIA, this is your tips and tricks for getting the most performance. Now, on Ubuntu 22.04, the kernel that it is running does have a problem where the commands to overpower the graphics card, meaning on a 6900 XT, its default is 255, but it can go all the way up to 300 watts. If I command the graphics card to use 300 watts, the new kernels that have been in use since I think 5.17 ignore your commands and it still maxes out at 255 watts. I believe the reason for this was because in kernels previous, starting in 5.15, the kernel would disregard any performance limits and the card would even go beyond 300 watts. And I think a knee-jerk reaction was someone reinstituted limits at defaults rather than allowing for anything to push above the defaults. So, but we can still make it perform better. So we need to do sudo nano, etc. default and grub. And the little bit of code that we want to add in here, grub command line Linux default, right after quiet splash, space, AMD GPU.pp feature mask equals 0 lowercase x, and then it's 8 Fs. This is going to allow you to control the performance of your graphics card, the fans, etc. But you're going to have to be careful using this. So we're going to Control X out of that, save it, and then you're also going to do a sudo update and grub. I've already done this, so there's no need for me to do it. You're going to reboot, and again, that'll unlock the ability to push your card a little bit harder. And now we want to change the card's default state to high performance, just like we did for the CPU. We want to change it to high performance. So the next bit of code is going to be, and you might have to check where your card is located. It should be in sysclass DRM card 0 device and then power DPM force performance level. You're going to do echo high pipe sudo t and then again the sysclass etc. And we're going to hit enter. And if it asks you for your password, put your password in. Now the card is defaulted to high. There's another bit of code that we can type in where we can watch the performance of the card, and it's sudo watch n, meaning time, half a second, and we're going to cat sys kernel debug dri0 AMD GPU info. And what that's going to do for us is that's going to allow us to see the performance of the video card, the watts that it's going to draw, the voltage going to the core, memory state, the P clock state, and right now we're actually currently running at 2,545 megahertz. So now the CPU's at its max and the graphics card is at its max. Let's see what kind of frame rates we get at 1440p high settings in Star Citizen. I've set my spawn point to Crusader 1 Lagrange point, so we're going to be starting there. And 318 hasn't dropped live yet. It's supposed to be sometime today. So really looking forward to that. And of course, I will put out a video to see if there's any changes to getting 318 running up on Linux. And for those of you that don't know, you can go to the console, type in r underscore display info space 1, and then that will give you your frame rate. Tell me those aren't sexy frame rates. That's going to do a lot better than Windows. And currently right now, I'm actually getting about 50% fewer, 50 frames fewer because OBS is running and recording at the same time. Without it, I'm seeing 230 FPS here at Crew L1. And the 1% and 0.1% lows are very, very smooth. All right, let's jump out of this real quick. And you can see with it still running in the background, every core is pegged at its max, as well as the GPU is pegged at its max. Again, we should see 300 watts, but with kernel in 22.04 and starting at kernel 5.17, it ignores any commands to go to the higher wattage. For instance, if I type in this one here, echo, no, that's for the fans. Here we go, echo 283, and then a whole bunch of zeros, pipe, sudo t, into my hardware power 1 cap. This should raise the wattage from 255 watts to 283 watts, which this card should handle no problem. However, it completely ignores, oh wait, why is it saying no such file or directory? Let me pause this real quick and see if I can find out. Okay, the directory had actually changed a little bit. Instead of hwmon 7, for some reason it had changed to hwmon 6. So let's try that and see if we get an increase in the wattage. We've set it successfully to 283 watts. Oh, and now we're getting 283 watts. This is brand new. I'm very happy to see this. Let's see what this did to our frame rates. Tell me those aren't sexy frame rates with OBS running. All right, something must have dropped in the kernel fix, and so now we're sporting 283 watts. Okay, with it finally starting to work again, where it will push the card to the 283 watts, which I've selected, I like to increase my fan speeds on the graphics card to keep it cooler so that we don't hit, 100 degrees C on the hotspot temp. So for that, what we need to do is we need to first enable control of the PWM fans. And that's going to be this one here. So echo 1 pipe sudo t sys class drm. But again, for this, it's going to be, for me today, it's going to be hwmon 6. PWM enable, that's going to allow control of the fans. And I'm going to have to be careful about this, and I'm going to have to do it fast because it will probably lower the fan speeds. And right now, the temperatures are a little warm because it's at the default fan curve. It's at 96 for a hot spot. So I'm going to have to go enable the fans and quickly enable a faster fan speed. So I'm going to do that now. So this will enable the fans. The temperature might drop up, pump up real fast, and we're just going to immediately go to 192. But I need to change this back to 6. All right, so my fans have ramped up, my temperatures are now dropping, and that's how I like it. And I'm actually going to put this at 202. There is a wonderful program. It's called Core Control, Core and then CTRL. Which you can download for Linux and enable to do all of the things that we've done, but in a graphical interface. I may cover that in a different video. But for now, for folks running either Intel or AMD CPUs, that code for enabling high performance on the CPU will be the same, which is this one here. And then for AMD graphics card users, you can follow this tutorial to get the most out of that. Again, if you're not real comfortable with command lines and trusting command lines, you can certainly download Core Control. And again, I'll put out a video a little later on using Core Control for that. But anyways, this is going to give you the best performance in Linux, which is definitely going to be better than Windows by a long shot. And for those of you who are wondering as whether or not this is stable in Linux, I have yet to have a single crash. In Windows, I've had a couple of crashes, but they were more likely due to me undervolting the GPU. But as for stability, Star Citizen runs beautifully in Linux. And I'm hoping more people turn to Linux, number one, to get rid of Microsoft, and number two, to convince the developers that a native Star Citizen in Linux is a worthwhile endeavor. So that's going to take care of this quick video today. As you can tell, I am not the best and smoothest orator on the planet, so which is why I had typed everything on the first video and did my best on this second video. If you found this useful, or if you have any questions, leave a comment down below. And again, I'll try to get these codes into the description so that you can just copy and paste. The one caveat is, once again, on the actual location of your GPU. It may be hardware Mon 2, it may be hard one Mon 1 or 6, etc. You can just go and look into your file directory and make the appropriate adjustments. All right, until then, we'll see you next time. Hopefully, it'll be when 3.18 Live drops, and we'll see whether or not we need to make any changes for Linux running 3.18. And we'll cheers, see you in the verse.